Good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this December 9th version of AM Live on EOA. Your connection to Eastern Oregon, we are glad that you are here with us today. If you want to find our content, if you go to EOA.network, you type that into the bar, then that will take you to a link tree where you can find all of the locations of our content and where it's distributed at, or you can scan that QR code that's on the screen. And you can find the places where you can find our stuff. Here in a little bit, we are going to have LeGrand Police Chief Gary Bell will be with us to talk to us about all things LeGrand Police. So, how are you, man?
Good morning. Today's first Monday, or no, second Monday. I feel like it's first Monday. Wait, is it second Monday? Yeah, it is.
It's Tuesday.
Second Monday.
I'm just going to go with the day of the week.
It feels like a second Monday to me.
Yeah.
I mean, well, actually, it feels like Monday because I worked Saturday and Sunday.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Like, there's stuff going on both days this weekend. So
Yeah, you had a little bit of slow sports, and then it like...
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was coming.
Yeah, all the way.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I like it like that. The busier I am, the better for me. Like
Yeah.
It keeps me rolling. I don't like what is it called? Sedentary? Is that where you're sitting?
Sedimentary? I don't know.
I don't think it's sedimentary. I think it's
I don't know.
sedentary. Sedentary time. Like, I think that's the word. I don't know. I'm not a wordsmith. I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing good. It's I like being busy this time of year too because I hate the weather. You know.
Yeah.
So I just try to battle through this, get through the crap weather, and then come out on the other end and have some baseball ready.
Have some baseball.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you want to do sports?
Let's do it.
All right.
AM Sports Report brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress. Make your home the heart of the holidays. Discover lasting comfort and timeless design at Northwest Furniture and Mattress. Big Red rocking chair on Elm, off Adams in LeGrand. EOU volleyball's Cinderella season came to an end last night in the semifinals of the national tournament in Sioux City. They lost to Indiana Wesleyan in 5 sets. It was a great match. Indiana Wesleyan's the team that put them out in the semifinals 2 years ago. That's 3 trips to the semis in the last 4 years for this Mountie softball team, and another just amazing season for Khaki and the ladies. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that we're gonna definitely have 2 All-Americans on this team, in Kiana Mack and Kira Vaughn, and I wouldn't be surprised if Brooke Womack snuck in there too as an All-American, because she had one heck of a season this year and was named to the AVCA All-Region team, and then went and had, I mean, a huge tournament. So we'll see as those awards come out. EOU men's and women's basketball won all 4 of their games this weekend. They played, the men played LCSC, and so did the women, on Friday, and then Walla Walla on Saturday. The most impressive win of the weekend was the women knocking off number 10 LCSC on Friday night. And that's a huge win for this Angie Weisaflu team, who they're 10-0. And Angie's been keeping them out. She's the raider for the conference, so she's been trying to keep them out of the top 25, but now they're going to be in the top 25 for sure. You can't be 10-0 and beat the number 10 team in the country and not go into the top 25. So in the next poll, we're going to see the Mountie women come into the poll as I wouldn't even be surprised if they come in, like 15, 14, somewhere right in there. EOU women's basketball's Kelsey Siegner was named the CCC Defensive Player of the Week this week. Last week, she was the Offensive Player of the Week, and I have an interview with her coming out probably tomorrow or the next day. I was trying to have it done by today, but yeah, you'll get to talk to the senior basketball player from Crane. She's a local Eastern Oregon girl. We'll talk about EOU indoor track and field and wrestling on Thursday. There's a lot, and I didn't want to cram this show full of everything. Congratulations to LHS senior Maddie Wolcott on Sunday. She signed her letter of intent to continue her academic and sports soccer career at Doane University in Nebraska, and that was really cool. I mean, I really wanted her to stay here and play for Eastern Oregon, but I also want kids to get their wings and get out away from their parents, and so I'm happy either way. I think she would have been an asset at EOU on the soccer team, but at the same time, I want to see kids follow their dreams and get away from mom and dad and learn how to live. It's part of it. The LHS boys basketball team fell to Skyview last night. It was a rough game. There was a time when they were down by 35, I want to say. But there are some things that are looking up for this boys basketball team. This is the first time I've seen them play. This was their first home game, like in person. I've seen them on a stream, but it's different. They have a couple new kids, and things are looking up for this basketball team. I think they have a chance at winning the GOL this year, which is huge. They play in Malala on Thursday at 5:30, while the girls go to Vail tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time. The Milenburg and the Safeway Buckle Classic are this weekend, so if you don't have anything to do, I mean, wrestling is huge in LeGrand, and these are the two huge tournaments. I mean, if outside of districts, the girls' team hosts one tournament and the boys' team hosts one tournament. That's this weekend. So if you don't have anything to do, middle school for the girls, high school for the boys, and you're going to see some really good wrestling, and you're going to see a lot of LeGrand kids win the Milenburg and the Buckle Classic. I want to say last year, I think we had 6 girls win it. Don't quote me on that, but somewhere right around there. And I think three boys. Just the rich history of wrestling in LeGrand would let you know that tournament's going to be awesome. AM Sports Show brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yep.
So, hey, I want to give a little plug real quick to Elgin Opera House. Went out and saw The White Christmas on this last weekend, and, man, what a great show. Be sure and take that in. It's going 2 more weekends. Kind of the thing that's a little bit unique about that is the 2 sisters that play in that happen to be Terry Hell's daughters, Maddie and Abby, and then Terry's youngest son, Joey. He's got to be 6'4". He's just huge. Anyhow, he's playing in that also. But so it's kind of cool because this is all of Terry, and if you don't know Terry Hell is the one who kind of re-energized the Elgin Opera House probably nearly 20 years ago now, and has kind of built that program over a period of time. And a lot of that has been, his kids have been a part of that show over and over. Abby particularly she's probably choreographed, I'll bet, 30 different shows now. And so anyhow, all of them are kind of launching, but the show, so that's unique. But then also the cast is just really, really good. The 2 sisters, Abby and Madeline, play the 2 main sisters in the show. And then Liam Bloodgood and another, his name escapes me, plays the male leads, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful show. So be sure and check that out. I wish I had pictures and stuff to show you, but that is really worthwhile. And they have shows on Thursday night, Friday night, and then 2 shows on Saturday, I believe, for the next 2 weekends. So, yeah. All right. Let's take a look outside and look at the weather. And it's kind of drizzly this morning. But yeah, it was rainy. All right, let's take a look at the weather graphic, Bennett.
Not much of a gap there.
No, not much difference in temperature. Yep. And
it's pretty much the same. I mean, it'll warm up just a hair, but it's pretty much the same all week.
Yep.
Crap.
Yeah, it was funny because I was talking to a farmer not too long ago. It's like, well, how do you like this rainy stuff? And he's like, let it rain. Yeah. They're kind of in their thing of like whatever they've done in their fields, they've done, and now they're, working on equipment and doing the stuff, getting ready for next year. All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back with LeGrand Police Chief Gary Bell. We're back. Chief Gary Bell.
Good morning.
Days are numbered.
I don't know if I like the way that sounds or not. Yeah.
That's right.
Short timer for sure.
That's right. Yeah. So you're retiring at the end of March, and
That's right.
And kind of preparing for that. And
Yeah. The other day somebody asked me, but which March?
But which March?
And I said the very next one.
Yeah.
The very next one. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Bittersweet though.
Yeah. And offline, we were talking about how the law enforcement community has had some pretty heavy days recently, and it's been like, okay, this. I'm sure there have been times to be like, okay, I'm not going to miss these kind of days.
Yeah, that's the world we're public safety.
Yeah.
That's it, if it weren't for those days,
Right.
and times like that, we wouldn't necessarily need public safety like we do. But there are, days, weeks, sometimes months that we're just extremely busy. And, I think everybody is aware, of some of the heavy burden that our community has felt over the course of the last month or weeks. And I think it's really important, though, to be respectful of families. We've had, I don't even feel right talking about how hard, the public safety team, in LeGrand and Union County has had to work, and some of the things that we've had to endure, because it just honestly pales in comparison to some of the loss and the challenge that families have had to endure. So it's all together. You can't look at it in a vacuum independently.
So when you have an incident, so recently there were two bodies that were discovered a short distance from each other that were deceased, and we're not going to go into all of that. But when you have an incident like that where the scene it's done, you're just investigating essentially. You're trying to figure out what happened or whatever it might be. Does it get to a point where it's like, all right, we have enough people here, we have this handled? How does it, or does it? Certainly the incident itself ripples everywhere.
Right.
But as far as how you guys respond to a scene, how do you frame that?
Yeah. It's really not so much as having, we talk about people, in terms of resources. So it's not really a matter of having the right number of resources. It's, given the circumstances of whatever it is that you're dealing with, it's having the right resources. And, in cases like that, we go into those, because here's the truth is our job, investigation, is we're trying to identify factually what has occurred. And that will take us where we need to go in terms of how do we respond, how do we deal with this, what do we need to do in order to deal with this. And, we start at the same place. And, we activate our major crimes team protocol, which brings a lot of resources from, all of the partnering agencies. For some of the viewers, I suspect most people know, but not just the LeGrand Police Department, but the Union County Sheriff's Office, the Oregon State Police, the District Attorney's Office, and then there's other partners too. Some of it depends upon jurisdictional things, maybe the nature of what is going on, but we have forensic technicians that are regional resources that will respond. They're employees of the Oregon State Police. We have the medical examiner's office, which is, again, it's under the umbrella, the leadership umbrella of the state police, but those assets are in the valley. So but all of that will come together, and we'll do whatever is necessary in order to identify the facts that need to be determined. And so it's not really a matter of the numbers, but it's the right numbers, the right resources.
Yeah, you guys, I mean, you call the task force, or I mean, you send the alarm, and
that's right.
They just come.
Yeah. So typically, the way that works is, we during the last month or weeks, there was an unfortunate incident that happened in Union, or just outside of Union, then here in LeGrand, or anywhere for that matter. But the identified first responder or agency of jurisdiction, will often be the first public safety agency there, and then the agency leadership contacts the other partners of the leaders of those agencies, and collectively, essentially, it's we all know each other. We work very well together. So it's a brief, with each other about what's going on, what we're dealing with, and then typically it takes the shape of what can we do to help? What do you need? And we just all that's the way. It's kind of the Eastern Oregon way, and it's not that way everywhere. And I don't want to suggest that we're just better, but we are here. I mean, but it really is because we have to work together. And you guys know how that goes in lots of aspects in life in rural America.
Limited resources.
That's right. But there's always pros and cons to everything. But it's how I think life and my professional life is all about perspective as well. And I have friends and professional acquaintances, from all over the place that do the same kind of work that I do. And it's not the same way everywhere in terms of partnership and the ability to work together and collaborate and work towards, here's the thing, is we're working, it's not about Gary. It's not about any of the other leaders, of our public safety organizations. It's about the people that we serve. Right. And there's places, sometimes jurisdictionally, the larger the populace, there's less necessity to depend upon others outside of their own confines, and so it creates these kind of insular, they just don't play nice with each other sometimes. And we have to do it. Doesn't mean that we always agree on every single thing. It doesn't mean that we have the same philosophy on every single thing, but we collaborate and we work. It's about professionalism and working together in order to get the job done. And we really, I mean, our police services, our fire services, our EMS service, we all have to do that in Eastern Oregon, because none of us can do it as well as we need to do it by ourselves.
I've seen quite a few times on cop shows, like the real life cop shows, where the sheriff and the police department do not like each other.
Yeah, or even local and state and federal jurisdictional authorities. But that's just not the case here. I mean, obviously, I've been doing the job for a while, and I've had really fantastic experiences and relationships with, partners from all levels of government. And, I think sometimes people derive, and understandably, because that's the mediums that we get information from, is like television or movies, and, the federal government shows up, or the FBI, and people are just bristle, and it's like, but that's not been the experience that I've had locally, throughout the span of my career. I mean, some fantastic, brilliant people, and they have a lot of resources and are very helpful. So, and we honestly will utilize assistance and support from some of our federal partners a lot more frequently than what people might realize. Things like analyzing electronics and things like that we just don't have the capacity to do some of those things. So,
well, and I didn't know this before we started these conversations, but the state police, they're the most funded. I mean, they have the most And so then they're the ones that, when we see crime labs and we see all of that expense and stuff, they're the ones that have those. I mean, tell me how they fit in. I mean, correct what I just said and kind of help people understand how critical that role is for the state.
Yeah. So, you know, most of that is identified by law in Oregon, and and some of it's OAR, but you know that the state police will provide a particular function, and so that's where foundationally, you know, it's set up our system where, you know, the state provides a state medical examiner and all of the resources that you know, some states you know, will have a coroner and other, but not in the state of Oregon. We have a medical examiner system, but you know, the forensic labs, you know, to analyze fingerprints and DNA, test and analyze drugs, crime scene processing. The state police has that function. There are a few, very few agencies, like Portland Police Bureau has the capacity to do some of that on their own. But here's the thing: the reason why it's so critically important is local governments. We can't, and it's not just that we can't afford to do that locally. We don't have the necessity to do that, right. You know, and we wouldn't. So to fund it the way that it would need to be done, we don't have the ability to. The capacity isn't needed.
Right, it would be a waste of resources.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. So it really functions pretty well, you know, to have that regionally. So, you know, it's whether it's a county sheriff or a local municipal police department that needs that assistance, or in this case, most you know, counties in the state of Oregon have major crimes functions where they partner together on these types of cases, and that model is that way for that very reason. Right. What we're discussing is because, you know, LeGrand Police Department has detectives. They're trained in all aspects of criminal investigation, up to and including homicide investigations. But, you know, we don't have that, and that's a good thing. Right. Need all the time, and most places in the state of Oregon don't. I mean, we don't have. You know, you watch TV. I watch. You guys remember that show Longmire? I don't know if you ever watched that.
I watched all that.
I got a chuckle out of that one because you have these rural locations, and every episode there's a new homicide that they're investigating. Yeah. It's like, and I'm sitting there. My wife always says, "Gary, it's just TV. Let's just watch it." Yeah, you're analyzing. I'm sitting there. It's like, these people need to move. Because
the chances are not good here.
Yeah, this is. I mean, there's only like 2,500 people, and it's like every week there's another homicide. They need to
get out.
These people need to. I mean, they need to peace out.
Yeah.
But we just don't have the capacity or the need to have that, to maintain that capacity. That's why it works so well when we come together. And the state police performs an absolutely critical function in that regard. So I don't. You know, I know the leadership and have immense respect for the leadership within the Oregon State Police. I would expect that they would say we're adequately funded, but we're not, because you got to, again, you always have to look at the perspective, because you look at the footprint and what they're charged to do.
Right.
And of course, you know, the budget compared to the City of LeGrand's municipal police department budget is quite large. But you look at the number of troopers, but the space, the areas, and the functions that they need to provide, I think that we could probably use more state troopers and more capacity there. But given it's like everything else, you know, it's about perspective, and given the resources that they have, I think they do a pretty darn phenomenal job. And when we call upon them, the beauty of what they have at their capacity, which benefits all of us, because you know, the people that live in the Grand, or in Union County, they're also paying state taxes.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So those state troopers and all of that capacity is at their disposal as well. And the state police can adjust resources and move things to where they need to be in order to help, you know, take care of whatever needs to be addressed, and then they can move them back. Yeah. And so, it's a good system, and it works well.
Well, and I just didn't, I mean, before we started talking, the state police was just the patrol officers, you know. And, and so then so it was just like a total revelation to me. It's like, I mean, which totally makes sense.
Have you guys had maybe any leadership from the state police come on?
No, but we need to.
Not to throw anybody out there, but I know a few guys that it would be interesting.
No, and I have a great relationship. I mean, I know personally his name escapes me right now, but the guy that's out here, he's a young dude.
Yeah, Captain Connor.
Yeah,
Captain Dan Connor is now the region commander for the state police, and he's a brilliant individual. He's a wonderful leader, and he would be. Dan, if you're out there, it'd be a great interview for these guys.
No, thank you. I'm working.
Dan, if you're out there, Gary just threw you under the bus.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, he would do it to me, so it's fine.
No, and I'm working on the schedule for next year, so I appreciate that suggestion.
Yeah. So no, some people aren't aware. It's not accidental not to get in their lane, but I'll share with you that around the nation there are some agencies that are called highway patrol, and some that are state police, and that's, if you talk to them, that's important, because the Oregon State Police does much more than just highway patrol.
Right, exactly.
Sometimes that's what it looks like to the motorists or people, because that's where you see them. But our Oregon State Police, aside from the services they're providing on the interstate and the state highways throughout the state of Oregon, they're doing a lot. They have, criminal detectives. They're doing a lot of investigations, like in our state penitentiaries.
And in parks. Like they're involved in that.
Yeah, there are a lot of state lands and places where they have primary jurisdiction that they have to do the same policing functions that, LeGrand Police Department or Union County Sheriff's Office does. And a big part of what they do is just provide that support to local and county law enforcement. So
and I'm remembering now where, so a couple of, I don't know, probably 10 years ago or longer, there was a series of murders that happened out in the Elgin area, and I mean, it was grisly and awful, and so then they were doing a television show. There was a local company, and we kind of helped add support for them, and they were interviewing some of those detectives from the state for that particular. And in the conversation that I'm having with them, it's like, well, what did you guys have to do with it? And then that's when I kind of got the whole, realized how involved they were. So,
and if you don't, something that really is a force multiplier for us when we partner with the state is if we have a crime that we're investigating, and components of the crime happened here locally, but then maybe this was a transient situation where the person committed crimes here, they committed crimes as they're traveling west through the state, then that's that continuity of investigators, because the state police has, I have contacts, in Pendleton and Boardman and the Dalles and Hood, but the state police has employees, so there's that continuity of investigation that they can call anywhere in the state and say, hey, we need you to go check such and such an address for this particular vehicle. And that can happen, like right now.
Quickly. Yeah,
yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what I find that's common is there's just so many untold stories. And and I don't mean a specific story. I mean the story of what the state police really does. This is a perfect example of me thinking, well, they're just highway patrol, when actually there's so much more that they do in service to the community. That additional story just hasn't been told very well. But that happens in your agency. That happens in the fire department. That happens, a lot of people think, well, the fire department, they put out fires. Well, they have no idea that EMS is, a gigantic chunk of what it is that they do, and so on and so forth. And that's super common.
Yeah. Well, some people probably aren't aware that, every spring when we, we don't celebrate, but we recognize Police Officer Memorial Day in May. The very first law enforcement official that was killed in the line of duty was an Oregon State trooper. And, Amos Spud Helms was his name, and he was killed during the investigation of a robbery. Saw a vehicle that matched the description in an armed robbery right here on Adams Avenue. It was a gas station at the time, so at the corner of Adams and Greenwood Streets, so where the local is now.
Yeah.
And if you walk down the sidewalk right there, there's a little granite marker that recognizes Trooper Helms. And I can't remember exact. I think maybe that somebody can look it up, but I think maybe 1934. But yeah, so I mean that tells you right here in LeGrand, and we had the LeGrand Police Department was functioning, but Trooper Helms was doing police work, you know, and supporting, all of the functions that we do locally. And
1931, you were
31,
close.
yeah. So yeah, lost his life in the line of duty right there. But yeah, so I mean, Brent, that's kind of what we do in public safety, though, and I think we've talked about this, or at least touched on it before, is that probably as much now in America as ever before, we've learned how critically important it is to be, and I bristle at buzzwords, but transparency, right? But really what that means is that it's not the police that are doing things to the public. We're working with you. I'm a member of the public. Here in a few short months, I'm not going to be a police officer. I'm going to be a tax-paying citizen just like anyone else. So, we try to tell the story, but there are certain aspects of what we do, whether it's police, fire, EMS, that, and it's not like we're trying to keep it from the public or maintain secrets, but it's things a matter of decency and respecting human beings and people, because oftentimes what we're doing, it's impacting people's lives. Now we have to balance all the time, is the information that we share, is it necessary for the public to be aware of that? And sometimes it absolutely is. Maybe it's because of public safety as a whole. Maybe it's to squelch concerns about something that factually is just not accurate. But we also oftentimes have to balance, like, hey, a family or some people, maybe a particular victim, has been really impacted by whatever we've been working on. So we're not trying to unnecessarily harm them any more than they already have been harmed. Right. So it's just a matter of, there's so much packed into it when I say doing the work professionally. And you guys know, you've heard me say it, I say it all the time, but even when we're doing investigations, even when we're talking to the media, even when we're sharing information with the public, or talking to families that, have lost a loved one, or, we do it the way that I would want to be treated if I were in that situation, or I would want my family to be treated. And sometimes it still hurts, and sometimes it's still difficult, but that's the best we can do.
Yeah.
Speaking of Amos and the state police, C. Lazy J. Ranch says Amos was killed the same year the state police were founded.
Yeah, early.
Yeah. And then Bud Forrest says, think about how many motorist assists turn into so much more needs.
Yeah, for sure.
That checks out for sure.
Yeah. Going back to the state police, you think about most people, understandably, right? You're traveling on the interstate, you're hoping not to see a state trooper, right?
Of course. Yeah.
But if you switch that hat around and just think for a moment, it's like if my daughter or loved one or my wife was traveling somewhere, I would want there to be as many state troopers there, because in the unlikely event, but sometimes it just happens, we have a mechanical breakdown, a flat tire, whatever the circumstance, wouldn't that be reassuring to me if, one of those gentlemen that, is wearing the campaign hat stops and supports her, or at least stands by while she, gets the help she needs.
I was probably 22, I don't know, whenever I moved from LeGrand to Western Oregon.
Yeah.
And I was driving through the gorge, and it was raining. It was raining cats and dogs. It was windy. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, so it's just pitch black.
Yeah.
And I get a flat tire. and that's the second. I've gotten 2 flat tires in almost the same spot. Well, there's hardly any shoulder there.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for a state trooper being out and about that night, I could have got run over like really easily. Just, and he actually stopped and put flares out, and you know what I mean. Like that's not that. Yeah,
I got to share with you guys. I don't know if this has happened to you, but there has been more than one time in my life while I was a police officer, my wife and I will be traveling somewhere, and somebody, invariably will just blow my doors off, or they're driving crazy or whatever. Yeah. And, my wife is usually saying, "It's okay, Gary, you're not working right now."
Right.
And it's like, and she's always right. But then, a mile, 2, 3 miles down the road, I see some police lights, and yep, they got them. Yeah. And it's like a fist bump, because it's like, good job, guys.
Yeah.
Just doesn't happen often enough.
Yeah, I recollect when, I didn't know any cops when I was young personally. Mm-hmm. And so then, probably until I was 30 years old, I had a total different opinion of law enforcement, because, the only thing I knew of them is that they gave me tickets, and there were times, and there were some hard lessons for me along the way, because I was young and poor, and it was affecting my pocketbook, and finally it changed my driving habits and so on and so forth. But the mental shift that I had inside of me from there until now, it was just, I only saw one side of what them, and now I know, because I know cops, and I know you and your others, like, them giving tickets is the least favorite thing. Nobody loves that. No. They would much rather be doing things that are more interesting or stimulating or whatever, and they look for opportunities to help people, and, but that mental shift that I've had over the years, I know that there's a lot of people that they're still in that beginning stage where I was for a long time. They just don't understand cops.
Right. And I do think that, American law enforcement, it's like a lot of things. We continue to evolve, and we continue to learn and try to improve and move the needle, in terms of professionalism. And I too can remember when I was young, and oftentimes it was just, and there's a time for this, of course, and there has to be, because people that police officers have contact with, sometimes that police officer has to determine their demeanor based upon that individual. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But you can also, when it's not always necessary to be that gruff, just, black and white, because I think people oftentimes respond, and I think we learn this at the local level, nationwide again, a little bit quicker and maybe more so than at the state or the federal level, because we have so much contact with the public that we serve. But it's just that treat people the right way. It just, because here's the thing, even if I have to write you a ticket, because it's like, Brent, I see you speeding every day, right. And, maybe I've stopped and talked to you before about this, and that didn't change anything. So really the litmus and how I apply officer discretion would be, clearly the warning or the talking to hasn't worked before, or even my presence. So
looks like it's the taser.
We're gonna, looks like we're gonna write you a ticket so that you can go talk to the judge, and he can speak with you, and maybe even assess you a monetary fine, and maybe that will change your driving behavior. But that doesn't mean that I have to be a jerk.
No.
And also it doesn't mean that I have to be giddy about it either. But it's just like, treat you the way that I would want to be treated, I guess, as best I could, you know, if I were the one receiving the ticket. Because what I've been stopped before in my life, on the freeway or whatnot, not very many times, but I have to tell you, each time I knew that it's like, I was driving too fast, and so if I were to get a ticket, it's like I know that it's my fault, and I deserved it. But I also know it's not going to be made better by me being a jerk,
Yeah.
you know. But I also, even though I know what I know and have the life experience and the training that I have, I also don't respond very well if this trooper or this officer is a jerk.
Right.
You know, it's like, come on, we're human beings.
Yeah.
You know, but anyway, that's kind
Yeah.
of the way that we do things.
Well, and I've been super fortunate that I've never had an officer be a jerk to me. It's always been on me,
Yeah.
especially when I was young. I mean, I got, I got my caught with my hand in the cookie jar and I'm in trouble, and
Yeah.
so I'm mad at him. You know,
Right.
it's all me. But
Yeah.
I guess I kind of thought that the motivation of cops was, and there are some cops, and you sense it everywhere, kind of like have that mall cop mentality. It's like, I have no other authority in my entire life except this position, and
Yeah.
I'm going to rub it in your face.
Yeah.
And so then that was a presumption that I had. If somebody's in law enforcement, they have a beef and they're trying to, and I've never met anybody who that was really true. Once I knew cops,
Yeah.
have you?
Well-
once I met cops and knew them, then I knew that it's like, no, they're in it for a lot of other reasons,
Yeah.
but it's not just because they're given authority and they want to push it on people.
Yeah, I think it's important to, and I mean, this is a big ask.
Yeah.
And it certainly is not an excuse, but I think it's important that we remember that police officers are not hatched. They're not made in a factory. They're human beings, just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
And you guys know, I mean, the longer you're around, the more people you're around, you can't help but cross paths with some people that just, you know what? Their personality and their character just ain't great. You know, it's just not great. And there are some police officers out there like that. But what I can tell you is that's what I was suggesting earlier about, over time and over the span of my career, I have witnessed this, not just locally, but in American policing, and that is that we've learned to employ the selection process that we use. The psychological evaluation is a required component of hiring a police officer in the state of Oregon now. The LeGrand Police Department has done that since I had to take a psychological evaluation as part of my selection process in the early 90s. That was a choice that the leadership at the LeGrand Police Department made back then, but within the last 5 or 6 years, the state of Oregon it's a legal requirement that you can't hire a police officer. So those are the kinds of things we're creating these filters, and we're getting wiser about trying to select the right people.
For sure.
But that's some of the challenge that we've talked about, is that with some of the social issues that we've experienced and the challenges, we don't have as many people that are interested in going into public safety as we have had historically. And so that makes it even harder for organizations and agencies to ensure that we're hiring the right people. Because you guys have heard, and probably even in your business, it's like good stuff in, good stuff out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We want to hire the right people, because we want those foundationally, those people that have good character. They have all of those traits that we know are positive things for a person to be in this role, and then we'll train them and we'll put a bunch of stuff on top of that. But if somebody foundationally is not a good person, or their character is flawed, or they have a bunch of negative traits, that culminates oftentimes into misconduct, or maybe just treating people the wrong way. And so we don't want that. But we need good people to want to serve the community in public safety roles.
For sure.
Yeah. So we're hiring. So if you guys know somebody, send them our way.
Yeah. So
there's lots of stuff going on. I mean, you oftentimes ask me what's going on with PD. So training. We have a new police officer at the Police Academy now. We have somebody here in training we call it FTEP, and it's nothing like the military, but we do have some acronyms: Field Training and Evaluation Program. It's on-the-job training, and so we have somebody in that right now.
Now, does that come after they've been to the academy? Or
before and after for us. So
Okay.
when we hire somebody, they immediately go into FTEP, into field training. There's different phases of that, like orientation. Typically within the first month to 2 months, they're going to the police academy, 16 weeks, so 4 months. We have one police academy in the state of Oregon. Some states, the police academy is more like a trade school. There's like the state of Texas, as an example, a whole bunch of police academies. So there's places in America where you can put yourself through a police academy and then go try to get hired.
Okay.
The state of Oregon is not that way. You cannot enter the police academy unless you're hired and employed by one of the law enforcement agencies in the state. All police officers go to the same. Now, some agencies have additional. The state police has another academy aside from the basic, but even troopers go through the same police academy that anybody else goes through.
In Salem. Used
in
to
Salem.
be in Monmouth.
Yep. Used to be on the campus of Western Oregon State College.
Yep.
And we now have our own campus. There on the east side of Salem. Yep. It's a wonderful facility, but as surprising as it is, I mean, we're busting at the seams down there, space and wise. But training is it's better than when I went to the basic police academy.
When you have the first bit before they go, is that kind of a little bit of like, this is what real life is? Or you want to make sure that you kind of know what you're getting into, is a little bit of experience before you invest all of that
sure.
training?
So, like I said, we that very first phase, we call it orientation because it's a lot of exposure to how we do things, right? Well, I mean, not too long before I started, it was very common in police agencies where you get hired, they put a uniform on you, give you your gun and your bullet, your bullets. Here's the keys to the car, and go forth and do well.
Yeah.
That's what they did. I mean, and I'm not saying that with any kind of measure of disrespect. It's like it's no different than a lot of industry. I mean, we've learned though, right? And that's not the way it is anymore.
Yeah.
Probably not a great idea.
We don't even put the person in a police uniform. I mean, we put them in a uniform, but it doesn't look like the one that the officers are wearing.
Right.
They're not armed with a gun because they haven't even had any training. They don't even know what the laws and the case law associated with the use of force is. So, I mean, it's not fair to them. It's not fair to the public. We want to make sure that they're adequately trained and prepared and set up for success before we put them in those situations. But that orientation, so they learn about our policies, it's just getting familiar with the work environment. They go to the police academy, and there's classroom, but lots of hands-on training. So lots of scenarios. So they come back to us, and then they go back into FTEP, and we hone that. And it's not that it's like that we do it differently, but we do have, like, how do you do reports here? As silly as it sounds, sometimes it's just learning the geography of the community. Because when a police officer gets a call for service at whatever address, I can remember when, I lived here, right? But when I got the job, all those years ago, they would say, what address? It's like, tell me where you want to go. I can take you. I can take you to the high school. I can take you to the hospital.
Right.
But it's like, I have no clue what the address is.
And you didn't have a phone. You didn't have a cell phone.
And some people may not know it. I mean, your Domino's delivery person probably does and things like that. But some people don't realize that there is a rhyme and a reason to the way the streets are laid out and the way the numbering system works. So our police officers learn that, which end of town do, the numbers, some people don't realize this, but the house numbers are smaller in the south and get bigger as you travel north, and are smaller in the west and get bigger as you travel east. But the officers learn which 100 blocks, like main arterial streets, like Washington separates, 100 blocks. And so they know those things, and when they get into a neighborhood, they know which side of the street is the odd numbers and which side of the street is the even numbers. Yeah. And yes, you're right. There's technology that's available now that we didn't have 3 decades ago when I started. But oftentimes when it comes to an emergency call for service, we don't have the time to pull over and, Google, so, the officers do learn that. They're pretty darn good navigators. And it's not just knowing where that address is, but what is the most efficient path from point A to point B to get there, to avoid potential obstacles like a train, things like that. So that's part of the training. But we have 2 dispatchers at Telecommunications Academy, same location, it's a different academy, and it's only 3 weeks, so it's not quite as long as the police academy. But
so what openings do you have now?
we have 1 dispatch position that we have a candidate in the final selection process, and we have 2 police officer positions that we have some candidates that are also in the background phase of the selection process. So, yeah.
Wow. No, that's super interesting about the address. So then when you hear an address, you might not know exactly where it is, but you know what part of town you got to be in right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
You learn now. The dispatchers, and this is the same way whether it's police, fire, or EMS. If it's a known location, they'll give you the street address and say Central Elementary School. So it's like, well, okay, we all know where that's at. We don't need to even concern ourselves with the numbers, right? But if you say, we all know. I mean, you think about Grand Ronde Hospital and all the different facilities and clinics and buildings that they have. So you can't just say such and such an address, Grand Ronde Hospital. Well, even the Grand Ronde Hospital, it's like, what part of the campus?
Right.
So they'll give you descriptive information on that. But if it's just a residence, say, 1513, Z Avenue, I mean, we have an idea based upon that 100 block of what arterial that's close to, and I know that's between Spruce and Greenwood, and it's like anything else. The longer you do it,
you can stop and get a cream-filled bog at Spruce Street on the way by.
Well, you used to be able to.
I know, you not anymore. They have them at Island City now.
Yeah, listen, I don't know if it was intended, but I picked up on that. And yes, your police officers know every single location that they can get donuts in LeGrand.
Especially those cream-filled logs, man. Them things are fire.
Yeah, they're definitely good stuff. But there's all those nuances that people don't think about. I even remember, before I was in this line of work, it's like you think that all a police officer does is just drive around all day long. And, typically now, especially when you see a LeGrand police officer in a vehicle, a police car, more likely than not, they're going from one call for service to the next call. And so, we work real hard because, albeit the law provides for an exemption for the officers to be able to talk on their phone when they're driving, we don't want our officers to, hey, here's the deal, it's distracting.
It's not safe.
It's not safe.
Even if you can do it, it's still not safe.
The facts are that the officers, their attention is divided amongst a whole bunch of stuff already. They're thinking, maybe they're talking on the radio. If they're communicating on the phone, it's hands-free, but that's not without,
risk.
Some of us can only do so much, right? And I still need to see what color is that traffic signal. Am I clear to proceed through this intersection? So there's a lot going on with those officers many times. And if they don't wave at you, it's not just because they're not friendly. It's just sometimes they're deep in thought, deep in communication, doing something that we train and talk about, foresighting, which means, have you heard that before?
No.
Essentially, they might be going to a call for service. Say it's a domestic violence in progress call for service at a particular address. That officer is foresighting, which means they're envisioning in their mind where they're going to park, what they're going to do when they get there. And it's a training technique that basically the premise is, if you have at least mentally walked through a process, sometimes your mind doesn't even know whether or not you really have done that or you just thought through it. And so it's just a way of saying that they're preparing themselves, to go to that call for service.
Well, and I'm sure that's fairly similar to an athlete.
Sports.
Kyle.
I was just thinking about that.
Exactly
Visualization. You go
Yep.
you're trained that same thing.
Yeah. So let's just say if it's football and you know that you visualize what you're doing when this particular play is called.
Yep.
You know, what tasks and what movements do it. And so mentally, it's like, that's as if you're actually doing it.
Right, 100%. And then if you've trained properly, it should just become second nature.
Muscle memory,
Muscle memory,
Yep,
100%.
exactly. And
Yep.
so that's, we do that, and that's, our officers they're thinking all the time, right? Because that sets them up for success. It's safer, because if you don't have that foresight, you don't think about it, and you just haphazardly go into things, you're reacting instead of acting with purpose. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Anticipation is better than reaction.
That's right, yep. So there's just a lot going on. I mean, it's a super rewarding job, super complicated job, and we want to try to control as many aspects of like calls for service and things that we can, because there's a lot of things we can't control.
Right.
And the more that we can control it, and that's where sometimes people, police officers, certain calls, they will exert what we call a pretty significant amount of command presence, which essentially is just a nice way of saying the police officer shows up and they're going to start telling people what to do.
Right.
You go stand over there, you know. But that's how they're gaining control, because if they don't and the chaos continues, that could lead to people getting hurt, more injury happening maybe than what's already happening. It could mean that the officer ultimately ends up having to use more force when they wouldn't have to otherwise. So basically the point is, when the police show up, we're trying, whatever the crisis has been, we're trying to put a lid on it so we can sort it out and make it go away, instead of now we're just part of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine that emotional intelligence is a big component.
Yeah.
You know, I am fairly blessed with that, but it's taken me a while to understand, because part of it is, you know, when we produce media for people, I have to guess how the audience is going to respond to that.
Right.
I mean, and so I'm constantly putting myself in the place of the person receiving that message.
Right.
And cops do a lot of that. I
Right.
mean, you're reading people. You are guessing, is this dude going to make a run for it? Is he lying? Is
Right.
he, you know, I mean, and or if it is an officer that's coming in for an interview or a candidate, it's like, does he fit? Is he? Yeah.
That's right. Yep. And we actually have training modules that we actually do on emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
and it's
for sure.
it's a much bigger deal that we have to employ all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it goes a lot further than what some people might think. You know, I mean, but a police officer may go to a call for service and they're dealing with someone that you know, is suffering with addiction or mental health issues. The next call for service, they might be dealing with someone that's an executive, you know, that's very well educated, and they're not impaired in any manner, but they're emotional, right? And so you can't be the most effective if you employ only one way to communicate or interact with those two different circumstances. I mean, it's all over the place, right?
Yeah.
In how you might be, and maybe even the same call for service, you have to employ different, you know, mechanisms in order to effectively communicate with people.
For sure.
Well, and that's even become in de-escalation, which is a big, you know, that's a big thing that's been, you know, I mean, those tactics, I'm sure, I mean, there's a lot to it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you know, I'll talk with the old timers, you know, people that retired years and years ago, and you know, my philosophy is it's a marriage and melding of tactics, techniques, wisdom that we learned in this line of work a very long time ago about the way because there are times to just, it's time that, I mean, it may come across, even the way I'm going to say it, it might come across kind of harsh and a little abrupt, but here's the thing, there's times that we know in this line of work that we have to employ some really heavy-handed techniques in order to just do the job and get it done.
Right.
And that's the safest way for the people involved. That's the safest way for the community. That means rolling up our sleeves and using whatever force is necessary, and maybe not a whole lot of talking just to get the job done. Yeah. Because there's some people, they're not going to respond to that.
Right.
They're not going to respond. It doesn't matter how you're going to talk to them.
Right.
But then there's other times. It doesn't mean that we have to pull out the big hammer every time we show up.
Right.
You know. And very seldom, actually. But
there's something in a police officer, I'm sure, that clicks. It's like this. I've negotiated as far as I can. This is only going to go downhill from here.
That's right.
And it's like I either take control of the situation now, or it's way harder to control 30 seconds from now.
Yeah, and our officers have, I mean, they just have, you know, what you think about the character that they have to bring to the table, the ability to do that.
Right.
Easier said than done. But there's times that it's like if someone is actively hurting, harming somebody else, there's no negotiating that is going to happen.
Right.
We're going to stop that because that person, if we allow that to continue, it might be one more blow from that device that person is holding that will kill that person.
Right.
And so that means that police officer needs to, no delay, no hesitation, they need to take the appropriate action in order to regain that control and save somebody's life.
Yeah. Well, Gary, thank you.
Yeah.
Always.
I know we always wait till the last second, but
yes.
City Hall Holiday Open House tomorrow, 4:30 at City Hall.
Okay.
So I'm being told that high school choir is going to be there.
Is there treats?
There's going to be
I'm not
treats.
sure.
So,
There's
City
I
Hall,
know.
Council Chambers tomorrow at 4:30, and Shop with a Cop at Walmart on Thursday.
This Thursday. Huh?
This coming Thursday.
The 11th, is that right? Does that sound right? Is it the 11th?
Yeah.
100%.
Oh,
Yeah.
nailed it.
And it's
That's surprising.
I'm trying the time when that
10:45,
I was
11
going to say
o'clock.
yeah. We'll be streaming that, and so
Police officers, deputies, troopers, they
Yep.
get to shop with a child.
Yeah.
The child gets to buy gifts for their family and something for themselves. It's kind of a secret, but they get to buy something for themselves.
Yeah.
The officer, trooper, deputy gets to have lunch with that child and then take them home. It's special for the child and the officers.
It's awesome.
Yep, pretty cool.
Hey, thank you, man.
Yeah, always.
Thanks always.
Yeah.
All right, and one more time before we quit here. The person I couldn't remember in the cast is Hunter Adams. So be sure and check out the White Christmas out at Elgin Opera House. Liam Bloodgood and Hunter Adams and the daughter of Terry Hells, Abby and Maddie, are the two sisters in that show. Great show. Don't miss it. All right.
You totally just like threw me for a curveball right there. Usually we do that after this, so I'm like sitting here waiting, and then you're like, oh, okay.
All right.
On this day, December 8th, 1930, Broadway Theater opens at 1681 Broadway in New York City. 1941, on this day, the U.S. and Britain declare war on Japan, so USA officially entered World War II. 1941, on this day as well, Franklin D. Roosevelt delivers his famous Day of Infamy speech to a joint session of Congress a day after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. 2010, on this day, with the second launch of the SpaceX Dragon, SpaceX becomes the first privately held company to successfully launch, orbit, and recover a spacecraft. 2024, on this day, singer-songwriter Taylor Swift concludes the Eras Tour with her 149th show at BC Place in Vancouver. The 21-month international concert is the highest grossing of all time, with box office gross just over $2 billion. The number one movie in America on this day in 2005, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And the quote of the day comes from Maya Angelou: "It takes courage to be kind." One more time. It takes courage to be kind.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Gary, for being here.
Yep.
Always a great conversation. So, and I think we have at least one more time before you're off the hook. So.
Sounds good.
All
Before
right.
I'm off the hook.
All right. Hey, thank you all. We'll see you Thursday.